Hello, everyone. It's Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to in Bitcoin. Today is February 1st, 2019. Longhand, long-term, confiscatable. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Notorious BTC. I don't usually read my shirts off like that, but I thought, remember, you can get shirts like this linked to below. Okay, we got an international panel here. I am pumped for this. Yeah, I know it's early in the morning back in the USA, but there's a whole other world out there, and it's the middle of the day for us. All right, Giacomo Zucco, you don't see him right now, but he is on his way. He's driving some small luxury Italian car, and he's, he'll arrive at one point. Lamborghini, whatever he's got. I don't know what he's got. All right, but we got Zack here. He's back in the East Coast, and we got Abraham Cambridge down in South Africa. So we're going to hear some stuff about South Africa today and the ecosystem down there. All these guys are linked to below, so check them out. And all of them are returning guests, so you guys are familiar with them. But if you're new, hey, check them out. All right, Zack, I'll start out with you. I think it was last week. The sky was falling because the Bitcoin ETF, the Van Eck, they pulled their ETF application, but now it's back. Oh, what a shock! What a shock! The process begins again for the Solid X Van Eck ETF, whatever it's called. Who knows how long it will take? Zack, what's going on with the ETF? What do you think?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. The ETF withdrawal, I think a lot of people understood that it was like rationally the best choice they could have made, given the government shutdown and whatnot. They were sort of faced with the decision of leaving the application submitted and not withdrawing, and having the SEC potentially just reject it by default, almost not by default, because like there are some technicals that would have allowed it to be approved by default, but the SEC could just very easily, with sort of like the skeleton crew they had running the agency, generate a 1 or 2 page rejection, and that was set obviously bad precedent for other ETF proposals. So my hunch, and a couple other people's hunch, is that they sort of communicated with some people at the agency, and the agency suggested, hey, just withdraw it so you don't have to start the process all over again and then resubmit it later. So what happened effectively is they withdrew, and now they resubmitted, which just resets the clock on the SEC's ability to decide to approve or reject, instead of keeping it submitted and the SEC rejects it and the entire process is reset. So just the clock is reset now instead of the entire process getting to the SEC considering it. And people are excited, I guess. Again, I don't know, like the Van Eck is best in class. The team's great, and I'd actually love to have them on your show at some point. They're just a lot of fun to talk to. But the having an ETF approved would be it draws a lot of headlines, maybe because it's like a bear market and the news cycle is always slow, but it would be great if it's approved. It's also not an immediate game changer right now, in my opinion. But yeah, we have a clock reset now for the SEC to consider the application.
Oh yeah, it is not an immediate game changer at all, because that word you just said, that term you just said, clock reset. And who knows how long they will be on the clock for. The government can take as long as they want to on this one, guys. So please don't hold your breath. And of course, and it could go into 2020. Be ready for it. This is how it works. You look forward to a date, and then all of a sudden it's a year later and the date has passed already. Abraham, any thoughts about this ETF? Is it even news down in South Africa?
From my perspective, I stopped paying attention to ETF news about a year ago. It seems to be the same dialogue, the same story. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. I don't have any funds in the funds that be traded. I'm about getting normal people, everyday individuals, into Bitcoin. Wall Street could do whatever they want to do, whatever times they want to do. When it happens, great. I'm not watching it. It makes no difference to my life.
Yeah, you know what? I think that is a beautiful attitude to take, and I wish everyone had that same attitude. Like, it doesn't really make a difference in our day-to-day life. If it'll be great when it happens, sure, it'll be great for some Wall Street dudes. You want to get in before the Wall Street dudes get in, and we've had that. All of us have had that opportunity for like 5 years now. Or
it's one day it's going to happen. I'm not counting down the days on a calendar of when it's going to be. I'm just trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can, so that eventually something does happen, great. But that's just a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know what's funny here? This is I'm looking in the chat here, the live chat, and this question almost always comes up, and I don't know. Here's a very common question: when is bottom? 2020, dude. You see, that's the thing. If you're even concerned about when is bottom, you're likely to have a weak hand. There'll be a bottom, there'll be a top, it's just be patient. Let time, long-term thinking people. I think if you're worried about the bear market, you're not valuing your wealth in Bitcoin. I mean, that's the thing. And this show, as all of you know, I try to get people dollar-based mindset. This is changing the world type of stuff. Now speaking, and there's so many developments going on in Bitcoin right now, and it has nothing to do with the price at all. The people who are building stuff here, they don't care about the dollar price right now. They're trying to get more Bitcoin, just like Abraham said. Now, on that note, on Zack, on your Twitter feed, which is pound these guests, by the way. You've been talking about the Lightning Network a lot lately, and people ask me so many questions about the Lightning Network. What's the latest development? What's the hottest, latest, greatest thing? Well, tell us, Zack, what you've been tweeting about.
Yeah. Lightning is there's always something happening with Lightning. I think 2019 will be huge for just the number of developers that are interested in building applications built on Lightning, on making massive UI UX improvements, on just educating people about why the Lightning Network exists and its potential to help Bitcoin and other blockchains, but most importantly, Bitcoin scale. One of the latest developments is this sort of social experiment project gimmick thing called the Lightning Trust Chain, where a group of people just originally started passing around a bunch of Satoshis among themselves from one person to the other, and then it sort of got out of hand and kept being passed to more and more people. And every time it went from one person to the next, like 10,000 more Satoshis or something would be added to the pool. And people just kept passing it along, posting on Twitter, I have this Lightning pool of Satoshis now. If you want it, comment with an invoice and I'll transfer it to you. Yesterday there were a couple interesting developments because, I mean, the point of this entire space is financial sovereignty. You can do whatever you want. No one can stop you. And so when the pot was transferred to this guy, Edward, he just tweeted basically, I have it now and I'm seizing it. All these Satoshis are mine, and sort of broke the chain or ended it, I should say. And that was fun. And then after that happened, another guy wanted, I can't remember the account, but wanted to continue the experiment and just sort of pull together his own pool of Satoshis to match the last balance after Edward seized it. And a new chain or the old chain continued, and people are still passing it around. So it's just a fun sort of gimmicky social experiment of all these people increasing the liquidity on the Lightning Network, introducing new people to Lightning, having them open channels by forcing them to sort of accept this pool. It's a lot of fun. So I guess that's the latest fun thing in Lightning to date.
All right. Yeah, I had heard about that. And sometimes these gimmicky things that can spark something, and all sorts of innovation can be born out of it. And maybe someone will find out about the Lightning Network because of it, and then be, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to build something that's useful on it. So good. I'm glad most of the stuff I've heard about from Lightning right now is little games and gimmicks. But hey, you got to start somewhere. And hey, look, speaking about starting somewhere, he has arrived in his Lamborghini. Giacomo Zucco is in the house. Welcome to the show, Giacomo.
Thank you very much. I parked the Lambo just here, and I'm very happy to be here. So
Oh,
I was listening to Zach. I'm very sorry I wasn't able to participate yet in this very fun stuff. I was around coming back from Las Vegas unconfiscatable conference, so I think I will try to keep up with this torch passing today or tomorrow at last. It's very nice to look at. I really agree with him that it's the internet started to be used by normal people, sending stupid animated bunny gif with sounds. Stupid things help technologies to spread around. It's games are mostly a killer app in order to get acquainted with the new technology at first. It's completely normal. It's actually standard.
and do you know of any? Are there any to bring up any cool things you see that are out there? I mean, you've been traveling the whole world, man.
So you mean about lightning and lightning use cases?
Yeah. Anything lightning that you think is newsworthy? Because people are just always asking me that. What's the latest in lightning? So Zach shared his thing. I thought maybe you had a different thing.
So I think that a very nice use case for Lightning. I've seen many actually in the last Lightning hackathon in New York, hosted by Chenko Labs. There was, for example, the integration with Microsoft Excel that was very funny because like a mix between something very new and very open source and cypherpunk and something absolutely legacy like an Excel paper. It was very interesting to see the contracts and the clash between these two words. And then I think that the Joule wallet on browser, it's great because I remember thinking, Lightning is actually what the Bitcoin equivalent of the kind of free, mindless, easy development approach that you can see on many shitcoin projects. When I was looking for the first time at the Ethereum wallet, the Fox one, the browser extension, Meta. I don't remember the name. Uh,
Meta.
yeah, exactly. I was looking at that and I was asking myself, okay, we do things that are safer and more scalable and more private in Bitcoin, but why nobody in Bitcoin cares for this kind of very easy UX? And the answer that I got from some Bitcoin wallet developers were something like, we cannot do proper things on a Chrome extension because first, it will not be safe, and on Bitcoin people keeps a lot of funds, but that's not true anymore with Lightning because there are intrinsic limitation on liquidity that you can put on your Lightning channel, so you can be more reckless because it's intrinsically studied and created and promoted for small amounts, so you can experiment with stuff that are a little bit less secure. And also the kind of interaction you mostly are used with the internet when you try to do instant payment on the browser are zero confirmation time and zero fee, which is something that you cannot have on chain. And also the fact that anything that you can try on Lightning, for example, atomic multipath or playing with the way the hash is generated, are kind of things that you cannot do on Bitcoin because you cannot change the consensus and change the base protocol every time you feel like experiment with new stuff, while you can change the client side let's say compatibility of two Lightning users without messing up with the bot protocol. So Lightning is a that part on Bitcoin in which we can pretend that we are as mindless as Ethereum developers.
No, but I
Well,
agree.
are you saying it gives opportunity for the more rec? Okay, yeah, Zach. The Zach, what are you saying?
No, I agree 100%. I think the Lightning Jewel app is one of the greatest, as far as it's just one of the greatest apps built for Lightning right now. One reason I think why it's especially exciting is because it is very like so similar to MetaMask, like Giacomo explained, and I think over the last 4 or 5 years or so, Ethereum has like maybe pretty obviously beat Bitcoin in attracting so many just sort of like app developers that want to build a simple application. And maybe Ethereum is easier to grok and they can just get started from day one with Ethereum. And I mean, the reason for that is because attracting those type of people isn't Bitcoin's priority right out of the gate. But with things like Joule and as Lightning continues to grow, not only is Bitcoin going to be already a superior form of money, it's going to be a superior application platform. And all of these developers that were attracted to Ethereum early on are going to, in Exodus, sort of migrate back to Bitcoin. And I think the ease of payments, of in-browser payments that Joule has, is just like one of the first catalysts in starting that process. It's phenomenally exciting. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Abraham, any lightning thoughts from South Africa?
No, I mean, that's just in terms of use case. We've always been striving towards giving. I mean, let me just give us a bit of background into what we actually do. From the Sun Exchange platform allows people around the world to own solar panels powering African businesses and schools, and from them earn Bitcoin. Now, at the moment, we're sending out the Bitcoin payments once per month, but that's so old-fashioned. I mean, getting a payment once per month is boring and tedious. And why should they have to wait for a monthly payment? Why should I just wait a month to get the money that they own because they've already produced the electricity? So the ability to convert kilowatt hours to Bitcoin in real time and then stream that value in real time is only possible on Lightning. You've got tiny microscopic payments being made. We even demoed this 2 years ago at the blockchain conference, the Bitcoin conference in Joburg. It was actually basically creating an oracle of solar production data from a solar inverter and getting that smart contract to transfer funds from one wallet to another. So you've basically got an instruction every 5-10 minutes of kilowatt hour production. We can now send payments via Lightning in a much higher frequency than that. And that's really cool. I mean, that's literally streaming monetized sunshine. And that's what we're working on towards building.
Real life use case there, people. Pound that like button. All right, now I want to circle back to Giacomo because he missed.
Yeah, I wanted to add just something about what I hope to see on Lightning very, very soon. So you know that there is a people streaming what they do with games, basically gamers that are on some platforms. So one was recently acquired by Amazon, and they play, they play and they stream, and people can donate them in order to go on playing. The major platform about that was acquired by Amazon. And the interesting thing is that, of course, many of these players are basically girls that turn out to be like a mix between cam girls and real players, and they started to be censored because basically you had this guy killing it at the first person shooter, and the girl with the webcam very smartly positioned in some particularly height position, and the girl was basically getting twice the donation. And so this platform started to censor users based on this kind of consideration. Of course, it's a censor. It's a legitimate kind of moderation. But I've heard some of my friends are working on some Lightning-based streaming per frame payment platforms that could prove kind of interesting in cases in which the typical mainstream fiat enabled platform is for some reason not available anymore to some kind of users. So that's another interesting use case. Sorry for interrupting your question.
No, that's good. We always like to hear about cam girl. Well, no. Anyway, value your wealth in Bitcoin, people. Speaking about cam girls, though, how did you like Las Vegas? I mean, had you been to Las Vegas before? Had you ever been there before?
Yes, once for vacation. I love it. So many of my Italian friends don't like Las Vegas because it is fake and it is kitsch. But I love kitsch and I love fake. Literally, I never really grown up, so the idea of living inside a theme park is very exciting for me. So I love Las Vegas as a tourist, and in this case, I really loved Las Vegas as a Bitcoin conference attendee and speaker. Unconfiscatable was really great. Tone and Vortex and Max, they did a wonderful job. It was very well balanced. one of the interesting things is that it was one Bitcoin only conference, which is badly needed because you have a lot of ICO blockchain bullshit conferences, but with the level of organization of a, I mean, not of a technical meet. I mean, technical, very highly technical developers, they are very good at coding, but sometimes they're not the best people in order to organize logistics and entertainment and balancing topics. While Ton was great with his stuff at doing that, it has been one of the best conference I've been so far. So I'm super happy. And of course, we had also some fun in Las Vegas as well, but not so much because the conference was all inside the same hotel. So basically, since we were like 80% of us were nerds, we have basically stayed in the hotel for 95% of the time.
Yeah, and it wasn't on the Strip. You see, the Strip, well, all of Las Vegas is a land of impulsivity, okay? So impulsive. So it is a miracle you can put on a conference there that, around long-term thinkers, around holding Bitcoin. That's quite an accomplishment because, I mean, the impulse, the unhealthy things I see there. I can't even name some of the things. I'm a big health nut. So as everybody knows, I am not a fan of Las Vegas at all. You people throwing their money away. Oh my God. And just eating at smorgasbords and getting drunk and getting into fights and wasting money at clubs, valuing their wealth in women in all sorts of not so good ways. So hey, but I like your take on it though, that living in a theme park. I mean, it's different. It's different. That's a positive way of looking at it, and I'm glad they were able to pull it off, and no one lost a lot of money. I hope people gained a lot of Bitcoin knowledge. I mean, that's
actually, Sefedian, I think that he introduced his speech kind of like this. It was like a very, very low time preference conference inside the highest time preference place in the world. It was very fun contrast.
Yeah, there you go. Pound that like button. That explains it right there. Two contrasting styles, Bitcoin and the city of gambling. But that hotel you stayed, it was at the D, right?
The
they like big. The guy a long time ago said he liked Bitcoin, and from then he got the reputation of it being. I actually, when I had to go to Las Vegas once, I stayed there. I thought it was great. I thought it was great not to be on the Strip, also to be in downtown Las Vegas. Anyways, no plugging Las Vegas anymore. I want to say, James Del Garrico, thank you for the $1.99 in the super chat. Lightning Network makes payment terms a thing of the past. Yes, James Del Garrico, thank you for that statement. And thank you for the support. I did, Giacomo, I had since you missed the very tip of the show, the very start of the show, I wanted to know if you thought anything about this, the Bitcoin ETF being back on track again. The Van Eck Solid X applied to the SEC once again. If that's a big deal to you, or if to me, it's just like, it's going to take a lot of time. It was going to happen. So just wouldn't hold your breath type of situation.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. It's eventually it's gonna happen, but it will take time. So it's a little bit like when China bans Bitcoin every week. The first time China bans Bitcoin, you are like shocked. The second time China bans Bitcoin, you are like meh, and the third time you don't care anymore. And ETF approval is just the same. Eventually, it's inevitable, and short term, it's unlikely that something relevant happens. I'm actually usually people has very contrasting two extreme feelings about ETFs and stuff like that. Some people think that they are necessary to Bitcoin to take over because like we need institutional money, and some people think that they are bad because they are doing fractional reserves on Bitcoin, centralizing. I'm actually in the middle. I don't care. I think it's inevitable, and it's fundamentally a good thing because there will exist custodian solutions of Bitcoin for traditional investors. That's something that we cannot just avoid. It will happen because Bitcoin is a non-correlated asset class. And when you have a non-correlated asset class, traditional investor will want to invest in this non-correlated asset class. And they are not cypherpunks that are willing to run a full node or manage private keys. These are just traditional investors that want to buy traditional kind of third-party IOUs. But I'm happy that this kind of centralized solution are coming from a clearly legacy established centralized parties. So if I mean, if your Bitcoin exchange is going to look like a bank with KYC, AML, and censorship, I think it's better if it is a bank, because at least people knows that they are not going to join a new fancy technological stuff. They're just going to use a traditional bank with the same old security trade-offs, with the same political problems, the same systemic risk. So if you want to have Bitcoin flavored risk, I think it's better if you buy that from Wall Street than if you buy that from Bitcoin startups, because Bitcoin startups are not insured, they are not liquid. It's better if you take your Bitcoin wallet and code and security practices from Bitcoin hackers, and you take your traditional IOU from an institutional Wall Street firm. So it's not fundamental for Bitcoin. It's nothing that will change Bitcoin fundamentally, but it's not necessary, but it's not bad intrinsically, and is not stoppable anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and also the people who would want to buy an ETF, be part of that. They want to deal with some Bitcoin startup. They would want it from a traditional name, a traditional Wall Street name. Also, that would make them feel very comfortable. And do you see, by the way, here someone from the chat wanted you to pronounce his name. Do you see in the side there? I posted someone's name. Giacomo, do you see?
James Del Guercio.
All right, he wanted to hear that. He wanted to hear that. I pronounce it with a Baltimore accent. You pronounce it the correct way. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about this Cryptopia hack. That is, no. Before the Cryptopia hack, Zach, I had a question for you. I didn't even tell you about this. The Venezuelan gold. You tweeted about the Venezuelan gold. That how the gold that Maduro thought was his, I guess at the Bank of England, it's not his. You control your own control your own vault, I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's I mean, that's sort of, I guess, the legacy example people were saying of not your keys, not your Bitcoin, which is pretty funny and true. Yeah, essentially Maduro just tried to claim and withdraw his gold holdings at the Bank of London, and they essentially said, no, we're not going to let that happen, which is pretty similar to storing all of your Bitcoins on maybe some of these Bitcoin startups that want to play bank also, and then you try and withdraw, and they don't like where your Bitcoins came from or where you're sending them, or maybe they're hacked, like we're about to talk about, and who knows? And you can't get them. So yeah, that's the point. And I mean, one of the interesting paths that whole conversation took was Maduro is obviously a pretty bad guy, and so if we can try and stop him from getting his money, isn't that? I mean, arguably that's great. Like Maduro doesn't have his gold, but the means to him not having his gold, the means to him not, maybe in a different sense, having his Bitcoin in a different situation is the problem. And I caught a lot of flack for saying that bad, like, dictators adopting Bitcoin early on is something that's a little bit disconcerting. But I meant that in the sense of separate from this issue, where we should like not try and stop people from having money, but in the sense that being early adopters has an enormous wealth potential for these individuals, and if with this wealth comes an increasingly long lifespan for their oppressive regime and whatnot, and that whole consideration. But obviously, the point of Bitcoin is financial sovereignty, like we saw with the Lightning Trust chain. This guy just seized the whole pot, and it sucked. But I mean, for some people, I guess, but you can't do anything about it. So if you have a lot of gold somewhere, I recommend not keeping it in the Bank of London if you're trying to start an oppressive regime and starve millions of people, because you might not be able to get your gold back.
Well, and the other thing that a dictator should learn from this, instead of trying to create their own centralized cryptocurrency, the petro, instead of you're wasting your time that way, you should have been getting Bitcoin yourself, and you would have been able to continue your repressive. You see, that's why they're not too smart.
Yeah. Well, so the thing on it's interesting because Maduro obviously he understands why Bitcoin's so important because he's an enemy of the U.S. right now, and he needs something to get around traditional financial systems. But all he knows is printing money, and so he defaulted to, well, I can just create a new one and print my own money, and it'll be the same thing, right? So and obviously Maduro is mining Bitcoin actively. He seizes Venezuelan miners' mining equipment and repurposes it for state Bitcoin mining. But I think the Petro only came to be because all he knows is printing new money. And so when he wanted something besides the dollar, he just tried to create his own version of Bitcoin that he could control because that's all he knew. So he's almost there. I mean, I wouldn't mind if Maduro didn't have any Bitcoin, but he's almost there to see the use case and not just create a new coin, but actually try and the only way you can leverage Bitcoin, which is what he wanted to do, is by owning Bitcoin, not by creating some new one. And so if he just owns some instead of creating a new one, he should be okay.
He wasn't patient enough. He's like, I need my coins now, so I'll just create my own coins. He defaulted to the impulsivity of inflation, of hyperinflation, of what he's always known. Abraham Cambridge, any thoughts on not your gold, not your vault, not your gold, Maduro stuff?
I don't. Just own your own private key. Don't buy gold, buy Bitcoin.
I think that's the other lesson here too. Unconfiscatable. If you control your own private key, you don't have to worry about Bank of England or gold or anything like that. Giacomo, you were smiling during all this. Any thoughts?
No, I like Zack's take on this. He's known for his bad takes on Twitter recently, but this is actually a good one because there is an interesting paradox about Bitcoin. Bitcoin serves the underserved. So if people now has some problems at using any kind of commerce or finance tool, Bitcoin is going to serve him. So there are two classes of people that are underserved. There are people oppressed by power, and there are also some kind of power oppressing people. There are they are themselves a little bit oppressed by higher power trying to defend the small guys. So you have just this strange hierarchy. The like when you have an independentist movement, for example, in Spain for Catalonia or something like that. Usually, these independentist movement, they become super friendly with the supranational entities like European Union. So since you fight Spain because you want to decentralize, and somebody fights Spain because they want to centralize into Europe, so the people who want to run away from Spain, they will become ally with the people that want to centralize Spain into European Union. And that's a very strange thing that happens kind of often. Also, like Scottish independentists being pro-euro, unlike the Britain Brexiters, which is this strange thing. So people oppressed by Maduro, they will be able to use Bitcoin to defend themselves from Maduro. But Maduro will be able to use Bitcoin in order to defend himself from, let's call it, I don't know, United Nations or anyway, U.S. government, which is somehow trying to prevent him from hurting people below him. So it's a strange circle. I think that overall the positive, the net positive is clear because if we ask yourself, is now more people excluded by global finance and global commerce because they are the little guys, or because they are evil dictators? Not just evil dictators, but that small subset of evil dictators that the first world superpowers actually decided to piss off. Because that's not, I mean, it's not the case that if you are a bloodthirsty dictator, then the US will just blacklist you. That's not the case. Only a particular subset of evil dictators in some particular power struggle configuration and scenarios, they get blacklisted by the US or the European Union or stuff like that. So I think it's pretty self-evident that we can have good and bad effects in serving the underserved, but mostly the dominant effect will be protecting the small guy against Maduro, and not really protecting Maduro against the US. I just had a little thing. I don't think that Maduro wasn't smart into creating his is altcoin, the stupid Pedro token, because it was stupid from the point of view of the of somebody investing it, of course, but creating it was just a smart move in order to do what he was already doing since decades. So inflating and debasing the bolivar. But instead of saying, guys, the bolivar is yet once more debased of 90% or something like that, he said, I'm creating a new currency. This is pegged with the dollars. The conversion rate with bolivar is this, and so you basically create it's a new way to do marketing about your hyperinflation. So if you have to do hyperinflation in order to steal money from your people, an altcoin is a wise marketing to do that with a little bit less. I don't know. It looks like more innovative, less traditional. It's brilliant.
Oh God, I love it. Pound that like button. By the way, people, on Sunday's show, we're going to have Maximo from Venezuela come on. I believe it's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we are going to talk about some of these Venezuelan topics that we kind of briefly touched on here today. Okay, I wanted to go to Abraham, and you're in a unique situation down there in South Africa, and you see. By the way, I retweeted and I linked to below the South African Bitcoin ecosystem, a chart that Abraham shared with me, which I found fascinating. It's growing down there. It's growing. But you're about empowering people, and your company actually has gotten a bunch of people into Bitcoin. People who never would have used Bitcoin before are using it. So I wanted you to just to touch on that, because I love these gateways into Bitcoin, creative gateways into Bitcoin, getting people who never would have held it their hands on Bitcoin. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, well, obviously here in South Africa, it's an emerging market. Like in most areas of Africa, and in fact, developing areas of the world, energy is a huge problem. You have the national grids, which have not been built properly, or massively under-resourced, or even falling apart in some cases. You're basically working archaic coal-fired grids, and many businesses, schools can't access reliable electricity. Lo and behold, this country is very, very sunny, and solar power is now the cheapest form of energy for businesses to be able to access energy. So decentralized energy form. You can put a solar panel on a roof, on a building. Anyone is empowered to create their own energy. But the money there's not enough money available for in South Africa for businesses to go solar. The debt is very expensive. People aren't looking to use their own working capital to produce solar energy. But lo and behold, people all around the world want to own solar panels because you can make money from them. If you own a solar panel, it produces electricity. You can sell that electricity for value. But how do you transfer that value from somewhere in South Africa or Kenya or Tanzania and get that value back to you? So back in 2014, when I started working on this, I realized that Bitcoin was the answer to that. You can now work in microscopic transactions, so people around the world can earn Bitcoin. So really, it's about problem solving. This is third world problems we're solving with latest technology. And these problems don't exist in a place like the UK. The grid works absolutely fine. And so you always hear this kind of skepticism about Bitcoin. So, well, why do you need it? Then we've got the bank system works fine, the energy system works fine. So, well, yes, it does. But look at what's going on in places like South Africa, where the factories are losing energy every single day. Look what's going on in Zimbabwe with hyperinflation. We're using these technologies to fix problems that don't exist in the developed world. And so now when you take this down to the South African level, South Africa is, I guess, fairly unique in the African perspective in that it's advanced enough with sophisticated enough energy and technology infrastructure, like good mobile phone access, everyone's very computer literate, but also with a sufficiently bad enough sort of financial background, a volatile national currency, concerns of corruption in all areas of government, that actually people were moving towards decentralized financial systems like Bitcoin. And South Africa has got the highest use case of Bitcoin in the world per capita. And where I'm sat here in Cape Town is actually, of all cities in the world, the highest usage of Bitcoin. And now just look at the ecosystem that's built around this. I'm here at the Woodstock Exchange, and there's probably about 4 or 5 crypto startups here, including one called Project Ubu, which is creating a universal basic income unit, which is now being issued to people. So they've actually got crypto available. But of course, all these things are interchangeable. So basically, it's just ways of getting people into the Bitcoin ecosystem, because as you all know, you should value wealth in Bitcoin, and it's the base currency. It's the crypto reserve currency. So yes, people may start altcoins, but it's all going to go through Bitcoin at some point. You know, the major exchanges here like Luno and ICE3X, Bitcoin's still got the most liquidity, and it's going to remain so. And when you look at the ecosystems now, we've posted it on the Sun Exchange Twitter feed. You've just retweeted it. There's not one sector of the South African economy that there is not a blockchain startup now working. And I just think that's so fascinating, because these are real problems that are being solved by real businesses that already exist. And as a result of us offering a very tangible service, buy a solar panel through Sun Exchange, lease it to a school, earn Bitcoin, it's actually it's introduced this gateway into Bitcoin. So about 80% of our customers have never used Bitcoin before. They've never used cryptocurrency, but now they're earning Bitcoin once per month from providing electricity to somebody in Africa. And because we've got this one universal unit of currency, not even currency, this universal unit of value, store of value, Bitcoin, it now makes sense to people. Oh, right, Bitcoin's not a currency. It's a way of transferring value around the world. And yes, if you hold it, that asset becomes more scarce in the wild, so the value may increase. But ultimately, it's a way of transferring value from one place on earth to another, peer to peer. And people now understand it's like, great, I'm now getting an income stream paid in this stuff. And people are delighted. So it's just a way of really proving that Bitcoin does serve a very useful function. It's brilliant at what it does. In fact, it's perfect at what it does. Yes, there may be scaling issues, but we've already addressed these earlier in this session. You know, Lightning networks coming out, enabling to put much higher frequency, even lower value transactions, just makes it make even more sense.
Very good stuff. Other members of the panel, do you have any questions for Abraham?
Yeah,
go, Zack.
I'm just curious if I'm just curious of the scale of the solar panel adoption, because you mentioned South Africa has the highest per capita Bitcoin use, and that's awesome. I just haven't heard that statistic. Can you describe to me the size of this demographic a little bit?
Well, I think it's there's obviously a very young population in South Africa. Like most emerging markets, your population demographic got very wide base on the younger people, all of which are sort of technologically motivated. Mobile money has always been used around Africa, so people are used to side digital currency, and also this kind of mistrust of the national currency. I mean, the South African rand is just devaluing over time non-stop, and so you've got people now. There's also a very entrepreneurial spirit in South Africa, and people trying to work out ways of creating businesses. So Bitcoin has become a focus point. And you may have also heard that there are regulations being introduced here, or the government is looking at how to regulate this, but they're not wanting to stop it. They realize actually the good and the benefit that's happening here, because there are a lot of scams. I mean, South Africa is a country where there is a problem with education, but people don't quite understand what a scam is and how to spot one. So I actually not necessarily support, but I encourage at least some mature approach to allowing this cryptocurrency ecosystem to flourish, rather than let it be tarnished by bad actors.
Giacomo taught me that if it's pretty much not Dentacoin, then it's a scam. So that's pretty much the benchmark there.
I confirm. Look at these teeth; they are perfect. After I use Dentacoin and my biting stuff, it's perfect.
Yeah.
My question would be about internet infrastructure, either in cities or especially in the countryside, because usually you have this trade-off. You need Bitcoin where the financial infrastructure is collapsed, or the monetary infrastructure is very bad. But at the same time, in order to run Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis, you need a pretty good internet infrastructure. So 4G, but also full node. Now we have like the mesh networks and Blockstream satellite. So things are getting better in order to access Bitcoin even without an interconnection. But how is the interconnection in countries?
Okay, let me just give you a perfect example. So a few months ago, I was in Kenya, very, very remote rural area of West Kenya. I mean, this is literally the coffee that you drink is probably grown by a small cash crop farmer in an area like this. And we're working with a company called PowerHive, who actually builds solar-powered microgrids in rural areas with high-speed Wi-Fi access. Now, the whole point in doing this is it provides high quality electricity supply to people in rural areas where previously they'd be having to burn kerosene and carry their crops physically to a nearby town to sell it for hard currency, to buy the kerosene, buy their mobile phone credit, be able to send text messages. But lo and behold, now we've got a high quality solar energy supply, decentralized in remote villages with an internet connection. These villages now have the ability to connect to data connections. They have the ability to become much higher quality of education. They can learn and read at nighttime because they have access to electricity. And they can sell their crops on the internet for a higher price than by walking into town. So this is the point here is that solar power is almost the same in the world of energy that Bitcoin is to the world of money. It's a decentralized democratic energy form. And so the ability of us now to be able to, our customers to be able to locate their solar panels in these projects has an incredible social and environmental and economic benefit. And this is really triple bottom line stuff. It's not just about making money. It's actually about transforming lives, and transforming lives in such a way that we're introducing them to these incredible technologies that benefit us all. And that's what Sun Exchange is all about. So it was eye-opening and reassuring to go into a place in rural Kenya and see people living happy lives, happy kids, strong communities, strong cultural heritage, but now with access to the internet and being able to use cryptocurrency and connect to the rest of the world without having to carry bags of worthless cash across borders to transfer money from one family to another. They now can just ping Bitcoin, and now they've got data because they've got solar power.
Man, real world stuff there, man. Well, any other questions for Abe before we move on, dudes?
Yeah, I have the last one. So basically, I'm not sure about how to phrase this question, but we can have very smart pay per kilowatt hour lighting network VS energy systems. But sometimes I think that Bitcoin mining, at least at a major scale, not a very small production scale, but is already a energy production, let's say, automatic allocation system, because where you have cheap energy, then you will probably want to run some ASICs in order to take advantage of the cheap energy, especially in the cases in which the cheap energy you can produce locally cannot be really consumed locally, and the transport of that energy will probably decrease the amount of useful energy a lot. So let's assume that you have, for example, a very good source of energy inside the jungle, and you have internet connection, but you don't have cables in order to bring this energy to a city. In that case, you just plant a Bitcoin mining plant, and basically you teleport energy without even the need of this kind of overstructure. Is this correct?
That's exactly, you've got it in one. I was having a discussion just a couple of days ago with the exact piece of hardware you'd require in order to do that, because when you've got surplus energy production, you can either put it into a battery, and when that battery is full, you've got nowhere else the energy to go, so you just turn off your solar panels, you've filled up. So it's such a waste to have all this surplus power that can't go anywhere. You can't transfer it, you can't store it, so you might as well convert it to Bitcoin, and they'll be able to transfer that digitally and get that money back. You're kind of literally farming Bitcoin and sending it around the world. But of course, with a solar output, it varies the course of the day, and you might fluctuate. A cloud goes past, your power's going to fluctuate. So rather than having one powerful graphics processor, the answer is to have lots, hundreds of tiny processors that turn on as power is available, almost like a graphics equalizer would on a kind of an audio screen. You've got this peak demand. As it goes up and down, more of these Bitcoin mines would turn on and off. And that would be a way of very, very efficiently mining crypto using surplus power, which we can easily retrofit into our systems already. And we're operating power plants throughout South Africa. There is always surplus energy, and we know that surplus energy is going to occur, but we're not able to sell it to the grid. The government here does not allow you to sell surplus solar power into the grid. So when we do have surplus solar power, it's basically lost income, lost revenue. So it's a matter of time before we find the right piece of hardware, retrofit it into our solar power plants, and then we've got an additional income stream created just from having surplus power that otherwise go to waste. And then you've got 100%, you're not only using clean energy, but you're actually using what otherwise be wasted energy being turned into crypto. So all these arguments about Bitcoin using up all the world's energy sources, I think it's a load of rubbish, because most Bitcoin mines are located where you've got surplus renewable energy that otherwise go to waste, like next to wind farms, next to hydro plants, next to geothermal plants. This is natural resource that's otherwise just not being used for anything, being turned into incredible, useful stores of value.
All right, dudes. We're talking all sorts of stuff. I love when Abraham comes on the show. There was one time you were on the show. You got, there was quite a few interesting solar questions for you. That Tizen Classic show, if you remember that one.
I do remember that one. Yeah, that got
was a classic.
Yeah, totally. I think another argument we always hear is also the fact that it takes more to mine. You'll never get back the energy it took to create a solar panel than it took to manufacture the solar panel, which is a load of rubbish. It takes about less than a year to pay back that energy. And actually, when you spend a Bitcoin on solar panels, you get 4 times the energy out of the solar panel than it took to create the Bitcoin in the first place. So you're actually creating a completely positive energy balance by financing solar with crypto. And then you're getting more income out of the solar panels in crypto again. And it just creates this whole new virtuous spiral economy that's based from silicon chips and silicon chips. It's financing silicon chips that produce electricity with money that was created on a silicon chip powered by electricity. That is a solid state solar powered economy based on crypto.
All righty. Well, Abe, he's linked to below. The Sun Exchange Twitter is below, and obviously there you can check more about what's going on down there. I want to move on. We're nearing the end of the show, but there are 2 topics that I haven't brought up, so I'm going to combine them into one somehow. I don't know. The Cryptopia hack continues. Yeah, remember Cryptopia got hacked like a few weeks ago. Well, the Ethereum addresses are still controlled by the hacker. And what is shocking is that people are still depositing Ethereum at those addresses because they have it set up automatically. They're mining Ethereum and they're just sending it to their exchange address. And I guess they don't value their wealth in Ethereum at all. They want to convert it to something, and they have no idea that this is even happening, which is it just shows you the wild state of affairs in cryptocurrency today, that we still have people that even though the exchange has been hacked, they have no idea, and they're still sending their Ethereum there where it's still being stolen. Number 2 is Tether, which is the crypto of exchanges, basically got up to number 4 on the Coinmarketcap market capitalization rankings this week. I mean, now it's like 6th. So you could say it's the 4th, 5th, or 6th most popular crypto under certain measurements. I mean, what does that say about the space? I think it says that a lot of people are trading, and I think a lot of people who aren't thinking are trading, because what's still going on in Cryptopia, that people who are miners are still blindly sending their cryptocurrencies to exchanges that are currently being hacked. So do you guys have any thoughts on anything that I just said? Cryptopia hack, Tether, Giacomo, I'll start with you.
So about Cryptopia, I think it was a great use case for Trace Mayer's proof of Satoshi's run. Also, I have a cap here that Trace gave me, unconfiscatable. So there are guys that actually withdraw money from Cryptopia a few days before, because they were doing Satoshi's run on January on the Genesis block anniversary. So they have been saved by this initiative. I hope that this initiative will also come up in the next years more and more powerful. It's a tradition for Bitcoiners in which every year we just withdraw we should always have funds outside an exchange anyway, so that's a no-brainer. But if you happen to have some funds on an exchange for trading reasons, arbitrage reasons, or whatever, just remember to at least do your proof of reserve once a year, or maybe even more than once a year. So this is a funny thing because the failure of the hack of the exchange happened a few days later, and so many people was actually saved by this stuff. And the second consideration is about Tether. It's very strange to call it the 4th cryptocurrency, because the point is, why isn't US dollar on PayPal or on Venmo or on Cash App or on Apple Pay the first cryptocurrency for market cap? I mean, if you count the market cap of dollars on PayPal, they are more than the market cap is higher than Tether. The thing is that Tether, we may say, while the issuance and the redeeming is centralized, The transfer level is decentralized over the Omni protocol on top of Bitcoin. So maybe we can call that a cryptocurrency, but it's kind of pointless. We could have, I mean, if I just issue one very rare unfungible paper on top of counterparty, and then it's so rare that people value that for billions, then I am top of Coinmarketcap. There are things that are different from Bitcoin and from Bitcoin clones, because they are not new monetary entities. These things are US dollars multiplied with a discount that represents the probability that this dollar will not be redeemed because Tether will fail. So that's what the Tether is. It's US dollar plus a trust coefficient. So it's not really reasonable to match it with other kind of. I will say that actually Tether is not a shitcoin in the same way altcoins usually are, because altcoins are trying to recreate something unique, which is digital scarcity. Tether is not trying to do that. Tether is just a proxy that happens to use the Omni protocol for many reasons, mostly for legal arbitrage and for plausible deniability with the regulators. They happen to use a Bitcoin derived protocol to transfer something which is completely non Bitcoin related and not a Bitcoin clone at all. It's actually just US dollars.
All right, Zach, your thoughts on this, on Tether? And well, first of all, Giacomo, very good point about proof of keys saving some people's butts. I didn't think about that. It did save some people. There's no doubt that some people pulled out of Cryptopia just in time. Zach.
Yeah, and I think for proof of keys, it was funny to watch. It was, so I was a little bit pessimistic about it. Just I didn't know how it would work out because, like Giacomo said, I think people who knew about it at least the first year around already had a lot of their coins, or should have already had a lot of their coins off exchanges. But on the day of the event, all of these exchanges started tweeting, yes, like withdraw all your coins or hold your keys. And I'm watching this like, why are you tweeting this? But I don't know. It's great, and I hope it continues. But yeah, I agree with Giacomo on the Tether thing. I think if you want to use Tether, you sort of have a preference for the dollar over Bitcoin, maybe. So just use the dollar. And I think the same situation is like with one of these new sort of Bitcoin pegged tokens that Ethereum is using to leverage Bitcoin on Ethereum. Those people obviously like Bitcoin as money better than Ethers, so just use Bitcoin. There's very niche use cases for these pegged tokens, pegged to something else, trying to leverage that asset on a separate network, like the dollar via Tether or Bitcoin via wrapped Bitcoin. But in the future, people will see that that's just an unnecessary inconvenience, and they'll just shift to the main network in the end. I don't know. That's all I have. That was probably a bad take. I'll let Giacomo decide.
Abraham, any thoughts on this? Any conclusionary remarks too? The floor is yours.
I'm just fascinated about how a hack can occur. I mean, crypto exchange. I mean, how did Cryptopia get hacked and not others? And what lessons learned are they able to share with other crypto exchanges to make sure this doesn't happen? I mean, what are they doing? I mean, what breach have they had? I know they're not allowed to say because it's a police matter. But
yeah,
what's happened? Is it an internal thing? If it's an internal thing as a member of staff, then that's one thing. But you know, what is it? It's curious. They need to make some statement. There's a lot of uncertainty. It causes FUD. You know, there needs to be some transparency here.
Well, they're putting it off for now. I mean, right now they're saying send your questions to the New Zealand Police Department. I mean, yeah. We'll get to the bottom of this eventually. But people, if you're like mining Ethereum or whatever, don't automatically send it to an exchange. Like, send it to your own address that you control. Control your own private key, whether it be with Bitcoin or if you're gambling Ethereum. Yes, Zach.
I mean, do that or just write Vitalik Buterin to give your Ether back after. So you have two options. Either you stop giving the Ether to the hacker, or you just ask for a reparatory hard fork later.
I was going to say almost the same thing. I mean, Ethereum people love sending their money to scammers on Twitter via bots. So the fact that they send it to an exchange that's hacked isn't very surprising either. So I don't know. We'll
Yeah, that's an interesting point there you make, Zach. Part of the reason that some Ethereum people are kind of risky with their Ethereum is because they jumped into Ethereum before they learned how to send a Bitcoin. I mean, I've recommended to anyone who gets into altcoins, just play around with Bitcoin first. Send your first Bitcoin or fraction of a Bitcoin before you start buying up these altcoins or becoming part of some mining pool and not knowing what you're doing. Learn the basics first. And I think there are probably some people in Ethereum that jump to Ethereum right away. And I mean, I don't want anybody to lose their wealth, but it does happen sometimes. All right, so we are at the end, but I want to hear everybody's take on anything that was left off, anything they want to bring up, any conclusionary type of things. Abraham, we'll start with you.
I was going to say that if anyone is in South Africa or in the African area or passing through South Africa, there's two really cool blockchain events coming up. One in end of February, one in beginning of March, one in Joburg, one in Cape Town. I'm presenting the one in Cape Town, but there's always great speakers. Adam, you were there last year. I think you can vouch for the energy that's at these events. So yeah, just keep that at blockchainafrica.co. Check it out. Come on down. Look forward to meeting you.
And yes, people, you might remember that Farzam he was on the show a few weeks ago from South Africa. He was talking about the same events, because he's going to be there too. And of course, I was there last year, and I saw Abraham and Farzam and Lorian and Tawanda Kembo from Zimbabwe. I love what's going down there in Southern Africa. And yes, I hope Tawanda is okay in Zimbabwe. That is a whole nother story. I don't know if they turned off the internet in Zimbabwe at one point. We'll have another show about that one of these days. It's unfortunate. These things are they get rid of Mugabe and then they get this. All right, Zach, your conclusionary thoughts.
My conclusionary thoughts are just find. I don't know. Maybe download Lightning Joule on your browser, I guess, and tool around with it. Try and figure out who has the Lightning Trust chain next, and do something with Lightning. It's I'm in the process of leveling up my programming skills right now because I want to build something on Lightning. And everyone, whether or not you want to build something on it, download a wallet, open a few channels, and add some liquidity to the network. That's my closing thought.
All right, lightning-centric final thought there on Zach. Thank you guys for being on the show. And finally, Giacomo, you were a little late today, but man, you brought it. What are anything that was left off? Anything you wanted to talk about to end it?
No, I think we covered pretty much a lot of topics, and I would like to just attach my final thought to Zach's one about Lightning. If you play with Lightning, one of the first things you will have to do will be to actually start running a Bitcoin full node, because so far, in order to run to receive money on Lightning Network, for example, you do have to run a Lightning node always connected and a Bitcoin node up in sync, and that's a good thing that you still need to do that. There are some technology coming like Neutrino that will make easier for you to run Lightning wallets without full nodes, but I'm very happy that they're not out yet, because a lot of people has to switch for the first time. I mean, when I was a kid, when I was 16 years old, I was playing with some open source software, but it was natural for everybody interested in computers to have a full basically server at home always connected. Right now, most of the people, they have a cell phone and they use the cloud, which is basically other people's computers. And when they have to run for the first time in a Lightning client, their first challenge is to actually buy for the first time a hardware that they will keep running and connected at home, which is like a huge step. And when you do that, when you install your first Bitcoin Core on your computer desktop, or you buy a Casa Hodl or Nodl or a Dojo boxes to run a full node, then you're really switching finally back from the cloud hangover to the run your program yourself new paradigm.
All right, dudes. There you go. That's your conclusionary thoughts from all our awesome panel members. I thank them all for making time to be. Remember, we do this show every single Friday. It's been at 8 a.m. Eastern time every Friday, Tel Aviv. Probably will be that time next week also. But we do a new show here every day. It's not just This Week in Bitcoin. It's Beyond Bitcoin. It's the One Bitcoin Show. So tune in on Saturday. There's some big news on Saturday and Sunday coming up. So just watch the shows. And again, follow me at TechBalt, TECHBALT on Twitter, disruptmeister.com. Watch all my old shows. And all these guys are linked below. Follow them all on Twitter. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share this video, pound that like button, bang that bell button, click on those squares, and Shabbat Shalom. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye. See ya. Thanks.